The easiest test is if you were reading that job description as an applicant, is that something you'd want to apply to? And finally, sourcing. This is where we're going to be going most in depth, proactively identifying and reaching out to the right candidates for you. We'll cover a bunch of different steps on how to make that good, but first, let's talk what is sourcing and why does it matter in the first place? Sourcing means proactively finding candidates rather than waiting for applicants who come to you. The best candidates aren't applying, they're probably already working somewhere else. You can think of this as very similar to outbound sales. You're building a top-of-funnel pipeline. In this case, prospecting is like sourcing candidates. You're doing cold outreach in the form of candidate emails or DMs, and then you're tracking your pipeline and conversion funnel from there. Oftentimes, we're focused exclusively on the sales part in the early days of the company and driving that initial revenue. At the same time, when we switch over to hiring and that becomes a big focus, we want to put the same attention and care into the hiring process as we might have when crafting our initial outbound process too. So how do we win at sourcing? There's a few different steps to it. The first is actually finding candidates. That's the search component. That's where you go to platforms like LinkedIn Recruiter or Juicebox to help find top candidates for your role. You'll then put together outreach messaging for them, typically a multi-step campaign. Think email, LinkedIn messaging, maybe a few different founders reaching out to the same person. Your goal is to convert them into an interview and then finally close the candidate from there. So let's talk how we actually do sourcing, specifically to two roles, sales and engineering. A lot of your early roles are probably going to be account executives and software engineers. The sourcing process for those two roles will differ. The screenshot we saw earlier on with all those LinkedIn DMs was from an engineering role. And traditionally, software engineering roles in particular have been the most competitive for your outbound sourcing. Now, while that's a little bit less so the case on the sales side, if you're hiring in a competitive market like San Francisco or New York, your sales roles are also going to be very competitive, and you'll want to put the same amount of attention and detail into those roles as well. As you'll scale, you'll become more specialized, focusing on more niche roles or creating different strategies altogether. We're going to stay focused on sales and engineering for the next few slides as well. So how do we actually find people, and what are the specific criteria we can use to find them? Let's start with AEs. The first strategy I want to take a look at is other companies in your industry. If they've sold into the same buyer persona, if they've sold a similar deal size, it'll make it particularly easy for them to adapt to your company as well, and hopefully have a faster starting point. We can look for that based on targeting specific companies or looking for quota attainment signals. Many account executives will publicly list their quota attainment. You'll see that in the form of things like 100% attainment in Q3 or 140% attainment for a full year. It can be different for every single AE or different based on how the company operates. Some of them don't have calendar years as their annual cycles, and so some of the metrics may look a little bit different. Things that are consistent are President's Club or being ranked in comparison to other AEs. Another factor that can be useful signal in AEs is candidates who have quickly gone through promotion cycles from SDR to AE to senior AE, and more. It's particularly helpful if they've done that while being at the same company and they've been promoted while working for either the same manager or within the same team, rather than having hopped between companies to get those promotions. And finally, you'll probably want to look for someone who's been in a fast-paced startup environment. Now, it's unlikely that you'll find someone who's been at a pre-seed or seed company previously, though those candidates exist as well. You're more likely to find people who have been at kind of the greater number of Series A to C companies where go-to-market teams typically scale. Now, let's think through the software engineering side and how we can find them. The first thing I'll highlight for software engineering is you'll really want to focus on what advantages you have. And so if there's something that you as a founder or with your co-founders know makes you unique, that might appeal to certain people, you'll want to focus on that in your search strategy as well. For example, I'm from Germany, so some of the initial outreach we did was for other Germans who now live in the Bay Area. You can also look at specific technologies they may have used or open source projects they have contributed to. Get as creative as you can, a little bit like you might do for sales. Things we've seen work particularly well for early stage engineering candidates is having shown some experience of building their own projects or doing something that's more akin to starting a startup. Maybe they've even been a startup founder in the past, or they've built projects that look a lot like a startup. And finally, you'll want to scale your outreach by going into specific communities. Think Slack groups, even through open source projects or Discord forums. All of those are great places to recruit. Next, we'll see what that looks like in practice. So here's a couple of criteria, in this case on Juicebox, that we can use to assess different profiles. In the lower section of the screenshot, you'll see some of those criteria, including in this case for the AE role, President's Club, 100+% attainment, and more. That'll easily rank those profiles for you and highlight ones that you might want to focus on. Same thing for software engineers, and we'll see some of those criteria that you can use to assess. So moving on to the next step.